all of the biggest sporting events in the world have single elimination, which is just a appeal to antiquity, logical fallacy. It's like, just because that has been done doesn't mean that the same rules apply to esports. It's not a physical sport. You can play more matches, kind of ridiculous. Also, you might see real sports move to double elimination in the future. Who the fuck can know? But regardless, another argument that I've seen floating around is like, the DRX story proves that single elimination is good. It's like, no, it doesn't, guys, because if DRX faced a murderer's row of teams in order to win, including the top 2 teams in their own region, in order to win this final, which means that they probably would have won in double elimination as well. Like, maybe not, but you can't say if an underdog team wins in single elimination that it doesn't work that way. Now, here's the argument you make. If T1 had smashed DRX in the finals 3-0, then you might say, well, DRX probably wouldn't have made the final in double elimination. And that would have been true, right? If you want the underdog story. But the point of double elimination is to avoid those scenarios where a team gets a very preferential matchup or has a very good day and then ends up with that victory. And then you end up with a final that is complete garbage. We ended up with a great final, which can happen in single elimination. The point of double elimination is just to help ensure that you have a better match in the finals.
By the way, here's all you reply when someone gives a really stupid point like that. Doesn't make any sense. When that John Needham guy goes, yeah, but all the biggest sports in the world have single elim. You just go, yeah, but they don't have yodels. Listen, we have a saying in English: ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer. Like, what's the relevance, John Needham? If you don't know, fans, what they're doing right there, they've done 2 things simultaneously that are such classic Riot behavior. One, you notice they've managed to pretend the rest of esports doesn't exist.
And also their own esport, Valorant, which has double elim in their world championship.
They managed to pretend it doesn't exist. Like, their only guide they could look at, they couldn't look at all the years of esports, other esports that are successful, formats that people have been cracking. They can't look at that. They just can only look at the one touchstone. Oh, sports. And then think of what he's saying. He didn't even give the reason why. He didn't go, well, the thing is, like, it would be a great reference point if he said most major sports use single elimination, which I like for insert principle A. Insert, by the way, it could be something like that. I like it to have a lot of tension around every playoff match with no extra life. I want teams to not have a chance to adapt. I want to actually see in the moment, like, intuitive player who adapts in the moment the best and can sort of walk the time. These would be great reasons, by the way. I wouldn't necessarily pick them and agree with them, but I could have respected someone who argued that way. And if you said all of that, that'd be great. But instead, he just sort of went, well, Riot Games actually operates on the cargo cult profit philosophy. So since sports has it, then we're going to do it. Therefore, by transitive property, we're going to be like sport. That's what he's implying, if you don't get, guys. He's implying that, like, the NFL is mega successful because it's single elimination. That's what the inference is.
And by the way, guys, you can just detect this as bullshit, and the NFL would like to do different things, because the NFL realizes that the more NFL games they are, the more money they make. Guys, they just upped the number of games from 16 to 17 for this very reason. They had a whole negotiation with the NFL Players Association about adding an extra game. The players would get paid more money then, and it was a tense negotiation because the players know an extra game means they could get hurt and end their careers. You are a psycho if you think that the NFL, if there were no penalties, if they could somehow convince the Players Association to move playoffs to double elim, the NFL would do that 1,000%, because the amount of extra money the NFL would make on those media rights deals would be astronomical. It would be, they want as many playoff games as possible, right? And
that's
you would think that Riot would want the same thing.
That's why I know where we're fucking up here. We're still trying to address Riot, right? You know what? This is where, in comics sometimes, Monty, like, even though Lex Luthor wants to kill Superman, I don't know if you know this, it's a famous trope that if someone else seems to have killed Superman, Lex Luthor goes mental and tries to kill them, because he's like, I wanted to kill him. So every now and then he will actually work together with Superman, right? If he has to. So the premise goes like this. Here's what I actually need to do. I need to just say, you know what? I'm going to put that whole, like, evil country thing to one side, and I've got to go direct to the top of Tencent. And when I get there, I just got to have a sit down and go, look, I am esports. Esports is a story. No, 20 plus years of the game. You know what? I've got one thing to explain to you that I think maybe has been lost in the communique from the Riot Global Office and Tencent. By the way, a company I respect very much, the way you enrich the Chinese economy. I'd just sell that line, obviously. Right? And then what I'd say to them is this. obviously to help the Chinese economy and help China grow as much as possible, I'd just like to point out that if you had double elimination, you'd have like X amount more games minimum at your tournaments, which if you were to take basic averages for the viewership would mean actually, you know, the event goes up 10 million viewed hours for the same amount of time spent. And then they'd be like, oh, thank you very much for this. I just have to make a call to Riot Global. Hello? Like, give me a break. Like, dude, I want to know if those guys know that, because those are the guys who are actually getting wrecked on this deal. Like, if they want raw numbers, like, by the way, how could any game stand against League of Legends if it had a double elim format, all those matches, all the story? It would be unbeatable as a game.
Look, man, I'm willing to sacrifice. Right. We'll make a deal. I'm willing to sacrifice double elim at the World Championship, but you have to do two things. You have to make MSI not fucking suck and have a real format at MSI where we get multiple good teams from the best regions in order to duke it out. There's number one. Number two is you have to add another international tournament so that we actually have more international competitions, so that all the best of fives we get are not just fucking, you know, single elim at Worlds. And number three, you have to fix Worlds groups. Please, for the love of God, like run TI style groups or something like that, so we have more groups games at the very least, or turn groups into best of threes, or do something, because we can't continue to have this. There are ways that we can make single elim not suck at Worlds, but it requires a lot more other things in order to make that like an acceptable compromise. We can't just continue with one team per region at MSI, infinity garbage group games into a very short playoff bracket, and we can't have infinity garbage group games and play-ins, these small groups which create weird seedings, and then have that seed into a bracket. If we had like two groups of 8 at Worlds, right, and then we had them seeded properly, then we could create a properly seeded single elimination bracket. But off of 6 games and tiebreakers, you can't get good seeding. You can't get good seeding. Like, what you want, guys, is you want a single elim bracket where the first team in Group A faces the fourth team in Group B, right? And that's on the top side of the bracket. The bottom side of the bracket is the first team in Group B and the fourth team from Group A, and then 2 and 3 on those sides, so that you actually have a bracket where you're likely to get a good finals, for example. So do those things, and we'll be okay.
You'll never convince idiots. They'll always go, but if you were the better team, you wouldn't.
Oh, like, God,
you can never defeat that thinking, unfortunately. You'll never defeat it. You'll never defeat it.
These are the same people that think they're just going to randomly be a millionaire one day. They're like, oh, I'm just down on my luck right now, but that one day when I get really lucky. Yeah, same mentality.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.